The moment Chiamaka stepped into the kitchen, the weight of the day pressed on her small shoulders. Her father's shop, cramped and filled with the smell of spices and oil, waited for her. Each shelf demanded order, each customer expected attention, and she could not afford a mistake. Outside, the sun burned, painting the dusty street gold, but inside, the smell of sweat and fresh bread reminded her of responsibility. Her siblings clung to her skirts, whispering questions, needing guidance, and she answered each patiently, tying her wrapper tightly, preparing to face another long day. Across the city, Adaugo lounged on a velvet chaise, her fingers brushing her designer phone as a maid brought her breakfast on a silver tray. The air smelled of perfume, cold air-conditioned luxury shielding her from any chore or struggle. Her mother backed orders at the staff, and she mirrored the sharpness, laughing when a maid stumbled or a driver arrived late. Every demand fulfilled by wealth, she never understood effort, everything was given, everything owed her, and the world bent beneath her whims. A sudden sound, a dropped tray, a clerk's mistake, made her snap her fingers, summoning attention with a glare sharper than any spoken word. Both girls, so close yet worlds apart, were moving toward a collision fate had planned. Little did Chiamaka know, the university would not judge clothes, wallets, or privilege, but character. And Adaugo would soon discover that arrogance has limits, even in a world built on gold. The clock ticked relentlessly toward a new beginning, each second a step closer to the day their lives would intertwine. But which of them would stand strong when the unexpected arrived? A shadow of tension lingered in the air, hinting that neither girl was prepared for the storm ahead. Chiamaka's heart thumped as she walked onto campus, her tote bag dragging over cracked concrete. The sight of sleek cars, designer clothes, and laughter that dripped with privilege made her feel invisible, small, almost out of place. Her fingers clutched the straps tighter, her eyes scanning for familiar faces, but there were none. Every whisper seemed loud, every glance judgmental. She remembered her father's words, sit where the rich sit, learn where they learn, and become a woman who can stand anywhere. That thought gave her courage, though fear clung to her like a shadow. Adaugo, arriving in a black luxury SUV, stepped out with perfect poise. Eyes turned automatically, heads whispered her name. She smiled, knowing power and beauty walked with her. But the moment she saw Chiamaka, simple clothes, thrifted shoes, quiet smile, something twisted in her chest. Not because of money, not because of beauty, but because there was a light about the girl that Adaugo could not buy. She felt a stir of envy, sharp and immediate, a warning she ignored. Their first interaction in class was a clash of words. Chiamaka answered questions confidently, softly, without arrogance, and the lecturer's approving nods were noticed by everyone, including Adaugo. Every glance, every whisper, sharpened the tension between them. The room, once neutral, became a battlefield of attention, silent judgments, and unspoken rivalries. And when a new student entered quietly, Obinna, carrying his inhaler, a subtle shift occurred, a shift neither girl fully understood. His gaze lingered on Chiamaka, and in that instant, Adaugo's jealousy sparked, ready to grow into a fire that would not be contained. Weeks passed, and the invisible battlefield grew visible. Chiamaka worked tirelessly, her grades impeccable, her friends drawn to her kindness. Adaugo's efforts were different. She smiled loudly, flaunted luxury, and whispered insults under her breath, her influence moving teachers and classmates alike. Every success of Chiamaka felt like a threat, and every act of humility from Chiamaka sharpened Adaugo's envy. One afternoon, a simple interaction turned dangerous. Obinna, standing near the lecture hall, dropped his notebook. Chiamaka bent quickly to pick it up, her hands brushing his, her voice soft but clear. Adaugo watched from across the room, a chill running down her spine. The jealousy she had kept contained roared to life. Questions formed in her mind, why him? Why not me? What does she have that I cannot buy? That evening, Adaugo plotted quietly, her phone in hand, her fingers trembling. Meanwhile, Chiamaka studied under a dim torchlight at home, unaware of the storm building for her on campus. Outside, the wind stirred, carrying the faint scent of dust and rain, a subtle warning that nothing would ever be the same. And as night fell, both girls lay awake, one dreaming of victory, the other of revenge. Neither suspected that destiny was already at work, weaving their fates together in ways that would shock everyone. Obinna moved through the campus like a shadow, quiet but observant. He carried his inhaler everywhere, a small, fragile lifeline in a world that often demanded strength. Chiamaka noticed the slight tremor in his hands the first time they spoke, the way his calm eyes studied her with curiosity. She offered a gentle smile, and something in him shifted, an unfamiliar warmth threading through his chest. Adaugo watched from the far end of the courtyard, her sharp eyes narrowing. Each glance from Obinna toward Chiamaka felt like a dagger. She remembered all the times she had tried to catch his attention, perfume, laughter, carefully rehearsed gestures, and realized nothing had worked. Rage and jealousy twined together inside her. "Why does he ignore me?" she whispered, grinding her teeth. Chiamaka, oblivious to the storm building behind her, continued to be her kind self. She helped classmates with notes, answered questions in class, and stayed humble even when praised. Obinna's friends teased him lightly about his obvious admiration. "You barely know her," one said. He just smiled, his gaze softening each time Chiamaka passed. That evening, under the dim glow of her room, Chiamaka thought about the upcoming exams. She tightened her wrapper, rubbed her tired hands, and whispered a prayer for strength. Across the city, Adaugo sat in her mansion, scrolling through Obinna's social media silently, plotting ways to turn the tides. Somewhere, a shadow of mischief was forming, and neither girl was aware just how fast fate was closing the distance between admiration, envy, and danger. The university halls buzzed with excitement, but under the chatter, a tension simmered. Chiamaka walked past the grand auditorium, her shoes scuffing the worn tiles. Heads turned, not for her wealth, but for the calm assurance in her posture, the quiet confidence she carried. Students whispered about her intelligence, her kindness, and her unwavering humility. Adaugo followed closely behind, dragging designer heels across the same hall. Her friends flitted around her, laughing, whispering insults at Chiamaka under their breath. Adaugo's lips curled into a cruel smile. Every compliment Chiamaka received felt like a personal slight, a reminder that no amount of luxury could buy admiration or respect. In class, Obinna sat quietly, inhaler tucked in his pocket, eyes fixed on Chiamaka as she answered question after question with elegance and intelligence. Adaugo's sharp tongue flared. "Madam Scholar," she hissed under her breath, "book alone will not make you queen." The words were low, but a few classmates caught them, glancing nervously between the two girls. The day ended with a small incident, a misplaced notebook, a dropped pen, and tension spiraled. Adaugo glared at Chiamaka across the courtyard, a plan forming. She needed to remind everyone who ruled the campus, and this time, she thought, her scheme would leave a mark. Chiamaka walked home unaware, her mind on lectures and family duties, while Adaugo's envy boiled like a pot left on fire, ready to spill over. It happened quietly at first. Obinna leaned over his notes, his breath shallow, chest tight. He coughed into his hand, the inhaler still locked in his bag across the hall. Chiamaka noticed immediately, dropping her own books. "Obinna," she called, running toward him. Every step echoed in the empty hallway. Adaugo paused in the doorway, watching. Her phone in hand, she pressed record, lips curling into a small, bitter smile. "Let's see who everyone notices now," she thought. The first gasp of panic filled the corridor as Obinna stumbled, eyes wide with fear. Chiamaka's hands found his, steadying him, calm and unafraid. "Get the inhaler." "Quick," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. Obinna pointed weakly toward the classroom. Chiamaka ran, heart pounding, each second a lifetime. Students froze, whispering, some reaching for help, some watching in silent horror as the moment unfolded. Adaugo hesitated for a heartbeat, filming the scene, unsure whether to step forward or keep recording. By the time Chiamaka returned with the inhaler, Obinna was gasping desperately. She pressed the device to his lips, counting each breath, urging him silently. Sweat stung her eyes, her heart thudding in her chest. Outside, the distant wail of an approaching ambulance hinted at the fragility of life, and Adaugo's smirk faltered. For the first time, she saw what true courage looked like, and it was not something money could buy. But would anyone notice? And what would the consequences be for both girls after this fateful moment? Adaugo's jealousy had grown into a burning ember, invisible to most but scorching everything inside her. She replayed the scene in her mind, Obinna's gasp, Chiamaka's calm hands, the admiration that followed. Each thought twisted her pride, making her pulse race. How dare she shine when I exist, she muttered under her breath, pacing her bedroom filled with luxury that now felt meaningless. Meanwhile, Chiamaka returned home exhausted, sweaty from running, heart still pounding. She did not know that cameras had captured her every move. Her father, Emeka, looked at her with quiet pride. You saved him, Chiamaka, he said gently, pressing her hand. Remember, courage and a kind heart always matter more than gold. She nodded, breathing slowly, unaware of the storm about to descend on campus. The next morning, Adaugo quietly uploaded the recording to the class group chat, captioned cruelly. But something unexpected happened. Students began calling out her cruelty instead of laughing. Messages flooded in, Bella, are you ashamed? You almost let him die. Chiamaka's classmates defended her, their admiration for her courage undeniable. Adaugo's face twisted in disbelief. The attention she expected to gain vanished. Her carefully maintained image of power began to crumble as whispers turned into pointed accusations. And deep inside, she realized, her money could not erase the truth. A new tension settled over her, heavier and darker than before. What would she do next to regain control, now that pride and envy were clashing in ways she hadn't anticipated? Chiamaka walked onto campus the next day with a quiet sense of triumph. Her classmates greeted her warmly, nodding, whispering their respect. Even students who had once ignored her now smiled, some even seeking advice for upcoming assignments. Her simple clothes, humble shoes, and gentle smile became symbols of bravery rather than inferiority. Adaugo, meanwhile, prowled the corridors like a trapped lion. Every whisper about Chiamaka, every laugh directed at her own cruelty, pricked at her ego. She tried to recover her image with jokes, sarcasm, and displays of wealth, but it was no use. The narrative had shifted, and Chiamaka was now the center of admiration. Obinna's eyes followed Chiamaka as she passed through the lecture hall. He smiled quietly, unaware that Adaugo's simmering hatred was growing more dangerous by the day. Adaugo plotted secretly, seeking new ways to assert her dominance, feeling cornered and furious. By sunset, whispers of the incident had reached the faculty. Some lecturers gave Chiamaka quiet nods of approval, recognizing her courage. Adaugo, now aware that she could not rely on bribery or privilege alone, clenched her fists. This was no longer a simple rivalry, it was a battle of hearts, wits, and character. And she was not ready to lose. The tension simmered, leaving the campus on edge. Months passed, and the unspoken triangle of attention grew sharper. Obinna's admiration for Chiamaka was obvious, and one evening, he asked her quietly, Chiamaka, are you single? Her heart fluttered, a mix of fear and joy. She nodded softly, unable to hide her happiness. Adaugo, observing from afar, felt a sharp twist in her chest. She had admired Obinna for years in secret, imagining a future with him, but now he openly favored Chiamaka. The quiet envy turned into something more sinister, an obsession to reclaim attention and assert dominance. Chiamaka continued her daily life, balancing studies, family responsibilities, and newfound admiration on campus. She stayed humble, her character shining through every action. Obina's friends teased him, noting the obvious affection, but he remained quietly attentive, his admiration unhidden. By the week's end, Adaugo made her move. She typed a long, trembling message to Obina on Instagram, pouring out her feelings. But the reply came quickly, shattering her pride. Adaugo, you are kind, but I love Chiamaka. The words hit her like a thunderbolt. Rage, jealousy, and humiliation collided inside her. That night, she plotted silently, convinced the next act would make Chiamaka pay for stealing everything she believed was hers. It was a sweltering afternoon when the inevitable occurred. Obina's asthma, usually controlled, flared unexpectedly as he walked near the library. His chest tightened, breath rasping in a panic. Students froze as they noticed him staggering. Chiamaka, already nearby, rushed instantly, hands steady, heart hammering. Adaugo lingered just behind the crowd, her phone raised, fingers pressing record with a cruel smile. Where is Chiamaka? She muttered bitterly. Let her save him now. Obina's eyes widened in terror, panic making speech impossible. Chiamaka located the inhaler in seconds, pressing it into his lips, counting his breaths. She moved with precision, urgency, and unwavering courage. Students watched in awe, whispering about the difference between true bravery and shallow arrogance. Adaugo's smirk faltered. She had recorded the moment to humiliate, but what emerged was proof of her cruelty. By the time the ambulance arrived, Obina's breathing stabilized, and Chiamaka's classmates hailed her heroism. Adaugo, frozen in shame, realized that for the first time, power, wealth, and vanity had no influence. Her world of privilege was crumbling, and a reckoning was coming. The next days on campus were tense. Chiamaka received heartfelt gratitude from friends, lecturers, and even strangers who had heard of her courage. Her quiet humility contrasted sharply with Adaugo's growing isolation. Attempts to regain popularity fell flat as peers called out her cruelty. Obina stayed close, offering smiles and small gestures of thanks. Chiamaka's heart swelled with both relief and nervous excitement. She had saved him, but the danger from Adaugo was not over. Each glance across the hall reminded her of the storm brewing quietly, fueled by envy. Adaugo, increasingly desperate, realized her old strategies of wealth and influence no longer worked. Classmates whispered about her actions, sharing the video she had intended to embarrass Chiamaka. Her phone buzzed with criticism and condemnation. The realization hit her, this was public, irreversible, and she was powerless. By evening, the mansion felt empty, the luxury meaningless. She could no longer control attention with money. Chiamaka, on the other hand, studied quietly under the dim torchlight at home, unaware that the universe was arranging a larger reward for her courage, a reward that would change both girls' lives forever. Months passed, and graduation drew near. Chiamaka's family helped her prepare modestly but elegantly, ironing her gown, offering prayers, and celebrating her integrity. Her heart was full of gratitude and quiet excitement for the day ahead. Adaugo prepared in stark contrast, wearing her most expensive gown, expecting admiration and envy from every eye. But inside, a quiet unease gnawed at her. Whispers and judgment from classmates lingered in her mind. She tried to practice smiles, but each one felt hollow. The day arrived, and the hall sparkled with color, laughter, and applause. Chiamaka walked in with poise, radiant in her simplicity, while Adaugo entered with false confidence. Obina's gaze found Chiamaka instantly, warmth in his eyes. The tension between the girls reached a boiling point, a silent duel of pride and humility. As the MC began the ceremony, the air buzzed with anticipation. Both girls knew this day would decide not just grades, but reputation, respect, and the consequences of their choices. A hush fell over the crowd, signaling that the first revelation of the day was about to unfold, and it would shock everyone. First came the applause for wealthy families and the recognition of Adaugo's father, Chief Ifeanyi Okori, who strutted confidently to the stage. But next, the MC introduced a quiet man, Mr. Chukwudi Nwoy, who had supported countless students. Whispers spread as he called Chiamaka to the stage. Obinna beamed proudly. Chiamaka, stunned, walked forward, heart racing. Mr. Nwoy recounted the moment she saved Obinna's life and publicly announced he would fund her master's education abroad and offer her a future position in his company. The hall erupted in cheers. Adaugo's face drained of color. The attention she expected went to Chiamaka, not her. Pride faltered, envy turned to fear. She realized that wealth alone could not buy respect, admiration, or love. Her classmates' eyes, once on her, now shone with admiration for Chiamaka. Even as applause filled the hall, a deeper shock was about to arrive. Police officers entered, scanning the VIP section. Adaugo's heart raced, her father's secrets, long hidden, were about to unravel publicly. The world tilted, and she felt powerless in a way she had never experienced. Chief Ifeanyi Okori, you are under arrest, the lead officer announced, pointing firmly. Gasps tore through the hall. Adaugo screamed, disbelief and panic overtaking her. Her father's corruption, fraud, and decades of abuse were being revealed. A woman stepped forward, Nkiru, Chiamaka's mother. Her voice, calm yet charged with years of pain, told the truth of the past, the assault, the denial, and the child abandoned years ago, Chiamaka herself. Silence swept over the room. Adaugo's jaw dropped. Chiamaka, my sister. Chief Okori's shame was palpable. Police led him away while his daughter and wife staggered in disbelief. Adaugo, stripped of privilege, realized her entire world had collapsed in minutes. Meanwhile, Chiamaka stepped further. Emeka stepped forward, affirming that Chiamaka was his daughter in every meaningful way. The revelation shifted power, attention, and respect instantly. Humility triumphed, arrogance faltered, and the truth carved new paths for both girls. Chiamaka's life, built on courage and kindness, was about to blossom beyond imagination, while Adaugo would face the consequences of years of entitlement. Months later, Chiamaka flew abroad to begin her fully sponsored master's program. Obinna joined her, ensuring their connection grew stronger. Under the campus lights, he held her hands. Chiamaka, will you be my girlfriend? He asked softly. She smiled, shy and radiant, whispering, yes. Back home, Adaugo struggled to adjust to a modest life. Her wealth gone, her privileges vanished, she learned the bitter lessons of humility and accountability. Friends disappeared, opportunities vanished, and her family faced the consequences of Chief Okori's crimes. Chiamaka returned a year later, honored and accomplished. She secured a top position in Mr. Nwoy's company, lifting her family from poverty. Her heart remained kind, humble, and uncorrupted, showing that true wealth lies in courage, integrity, and love. On her wedding day to Obinna, surrounded by family who truly cherished her, Chiamaka reflected on the journey. Every struggle, every small victory, every act of kindness had led her here. She smiled, knowing that while Adaugo had wealth, she possessed something far more powerful, a heart that could never be bought. And in that truth, the story of courage, humility, and destiny found its rightful ending.